My name is Martha Herdendorf, and I'm the marketing coordinator here at Top Floor. Before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping items I'd like to go over. There will be a dedicated time at the end of today's webinar for questions, so if you think of something during the presentation, please feel free to submit through the questions control panel. You may send your questions in at any time during the presentation, and we will collect and address them during the Q&A session at the end. Okay, and with that, I will now turn things right over to our presenters, Sabrina Karani and Stephen Edwards.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sabrina Karani. I'm the manager of digital design here at Top Floor, and today I am presenting with Stephen Edwards, one of our SEO specialists.
Good morning.
The first session will not dive into our website planning process and how that all works and fits together. What we really wanted to do is focus on what our clients should be thinking about and planning for before they even go to an agency to develop out and design out a new website. So this first part is, do I even need a new website? The first thing that we defined is that you need to define your frustrations. And this is your internal team frustrations. So this is not what your users are seeing. This is more how you would like your website to work for you. So a couple things to think about are outdated design, whether or not your site is responsive. So what we mean by responsive is, can you view it properly on all different types of devices, such as mobile, tablet, desktop, large screen monitors, including a TV screen. So how does your site fold together, and are you able to properly read everything, and is everything accessible to all users on all devices, all browsers? The next thing we thought about was poor content editor or content management system, and we'll get into that a little bit further later on. But what this really means is, how is your site built? Is it really difficult for you to update any of the content on your site? Are you able to update your phone number, your address, locations, add additional pages on your own, or do you constantly have to go back to your developers to do all of that? Which is a big frustration that we hear from a lot of our clients. The next one was poor site structure. So what we mean by this is it easy for users to find the information that they need? Is it easy for your internal team members to find the information that you need? Are you able to add pages where you need to add them, or do you have to just include additional links within the body copy rather than changing the main site navigation? Missing desired functionality. Some of those could be dealer locators, for example, or calculators, or blogs, or news and event items. Are you able to add all of those different features to your site, or is it really just pages with content on them? Including videos as well, which again we'll get into a little bit further later on. And then site has not grown with your company. This is what we hear a lot from our clients, is that their site is from 2000, they really need to update it, they don't provide the same services or products that they used to, or they really want to change their focus, and it hasn't really worked for them, and therefore they're not getting very many leads from their current website. And the last one is, site is not generating enough leads or the right kind of business. We're working with a client currently who recently told me, you know, a lot of people who are coming to our site are high school or college students looking for information. They're not the kinds of leads that we're actually wanting to generate additional business. And it's not generating additional ROI or return on investment from this website. So what we really want to do is try to focus on the customers that are out there and try to find them on the web to bring them to our site and request additional information.
It's also important to know how your current site performs, as well as having hard evidence of which parts of your site perform better or worse than others. Setting your site up with a metrics tracking suite like Google or Adobe Analytics will allow you to track where users are entering your site, which pages they're traveling to, and whether or not they're interacting with your site and converting. I'm not going to talk too deeply about how to use these tools because that could be the topic of an entirely different webinar, but I will touch on a few metrics that will be useful to determine the performance of your current site. The first is to look at where users are entering your site. If they are entering on low-value pages or entering your site and leaving right away, this may be an indicator that your more valuable pages are not targeting the right audience. Additionally, if certain goal completions like contact us forms or RFQs are important but underperforming on your site, it would be important to address how these are portrayed and located when building out a new site. Finally, an analytics tool will be able to help you determine and define if your current website has a defined user funnel, that is, a clear and easy-to-use path from entrance to conversion. If users are not following predictable defined paths on your site, it will be important to consider your new website structure and layout during the planning process. Once you have taken the time to record your frustrations as well as setting your baseline, it will be important for you and your company to set clearly defined goals for what you want from your new site. We will be touching on this point later and throughout the webinar, but I want to put it into your mind now so that you're thinking about it as we move forward. It's important to determine what metrics you will be using to measure the success of your new site. Is your goal to gain more traffic or to gain more and better qualified leads? Maybe you're an e-commerce site with sales and revenue goals. Setting these goals and knowing your baseline performance for them will allow you to easily and consistently document the improvements being made to your site after it is launched and for the years to come. One important item to determine at this step is whether or not your new site will need any third-party tools to measure success. For example, if you're an e-commerce site, you may need a third-party e-commerce platform integrated into your site that will allow you to track sales. Many of these tools integrate with Google Analytics, and it is worth the time and effort to make sure that all the parts of your new site work fluidly with one another. After taking into account your user and internal frustrations, this will help you generate more leads after the site is released and for the following years. While your company's goals are important, it's also crucial to reach out to your users to discover their pain points with your existing site. This can be done via a survey email or newsletter or to your subscribers and existing client base. If another way of reaching out to your users works better for your business, that's okay too, as long as the effort is taken to obtain their valuable feedback. When asking for your users' pain points, ask direct questions with actionable answers. Questions that lead to vague or qualitative suggestions are not as useful as they seem and are often not the most efficient way to mine your user base for this information. Once you've gathered both your goals and your users' goals, separate them into two lists. It will be important to keep these separate because while they may overlap, you and your users may have different priorities when using your site. Being able to quickly acknowledge where your goals originated from will help you prioritize your needs and wants later on in the planning process.
So as Stephen just touched on, focusing on your users' frustrations is an extremely important step in this process because as you're thinking about redeveloping a site, you can't just think about what your company's goals are, but what your users' goals are as well. Oftentimes, as he mentioned, they do overlap. So what you'll find is that they're looking for your services or they're looking for your products, and that's exactly what you want to feature, or they're even looking for an easy way to contact you and reach out to you. But sometimes what they're also looking for is educational items or resources, and that may not be something that you've even considered. So it's a very important step to think about what your users really want to find on your site that will entice them to reach out to you and gather more information or possibly work with you. So as we go through this, the way that we've defined this is counterintuitive navigation on the site structure. And as we pointed out in the initial slide about defining your own internal frustrations, this is extremely important to the user. So imagine that you're a user going onto a site. You go to one of the pages. You see a link within the body copy. You go to that link. You start navigating to other pages on the site. And all of a sudden you want to go back. Hitting the back button is not an ideal way to navigate the site, especially if you're on a mobile device. So having those pages available to the user through a side navigation or through the main navigation or the main menu up at the top of every single page is extremely important. Poorly defined user paths, again, this is referring to navigation, but it's also things that are on your page. So if you have a main, what we call a CTA or call to action on your website, what we're referring to is you're on a product page, for example, and where do I go next? Where do you want to lead the user? What is the most important next step for them to take? Probably to reach out to you or purchase that item or request a quote on that item. So making sure that that call to action is prominent on the page is one of the most important things that you could do when structuring that page and structuring your content. Slow page load times, this is an extremely important point. So images, videos, JavaScript plugins, and what I mean by that is kind of animations on your site or sliders on your site or galleries on your site can slow down your page's load time. So considering how all of those features are going to be integrated into your site and making sure that all of those features are optimized and reduced in file size as much as possible is extremely important. And then the next one is the site is not mobile or responsive. So this is one that I covered previously in the internal frustrations as well, but it's an even bigger frustration for your users. So imagine you're a B2B construction company and one of your users is out on a job site and they're trying to access your site from their mobile phone or from a tablet. Are they able to see all the information properly? Are they able to navigate to all of the same pages they can on desktop? Are they able to use the functionality in the same way that you've intended it to be used on desktop? One of the biggest issues that we've found within the past, I'd say about 5 to 10 years, is that Flash is no longer a supported, Stephen's laughing at me, Flash is no longer a supported way of coding a site anymore because a lot of mobile devices do not support Flash. So considering that and considering the newest ways of developing a site and what is going to be supported across all browsers and all devices is extremely important. And then the last one is cannot find the information they are looking for. So this relates back to counterintuitive navigation. But it's also talking about, do you have those contact forms that they really need? Do you have the calculators if they're trying to calculate out the exact size of a screw or a part for one of their machines? Is that available to them, or are they going to have to reach out to you to get that information? And that also includes documentation. Are they finding everything that they need? They're a current client, they've purchased your product, but can they find information about that product if they need it? So making sure that you have all of that on your website and making sure that you ask your users, as Stephen pointed out, actually doing a questionnaire and interviewing your users is extremely important to consider as you're developing out this new process. The next one is defining the needs of and wants for your new website. So as you've gathered all of this content and as you've thought about what you really want to feature and showcase on your site, but also what your users are looking for on your new site, you've created these two lists. Now it's about combining them and putting them together and actually separating out the real needs and the real necessities for this website, and then the wish list items, or as we called it on the slide, bells and whistles. So what are your must-haves? And then what are your wish lists? What are things that you can accomplish within the time frame that you need this new site launched? And what are things that we can do in a phase 2 or even a phase 3 project? If a video gallery is something that you're interested in, is that something that you can have ready in time for the launch of your new website? Or is that something that we can add later on, but we need to plan for in advance? So even though you're creating this wish list, it's still important to provide that to the agency that you decide to go with, or to multiple agencies if you're out there fishing. So it's an integral part for us to be able to see what you want within this first phase and also what you're trying to plan for in the future. And finding a balance between the necessities for the businesses and the necessities for the users. If the users really are looking for educational items and you don't know that that's necessarily something that you want to focus on right now, consider it for phase 2, because it is something that people are coming to your site to try and find. Now we move on to part 2. What are my goals for my new website? So defining the big goals. So these are just the kind of overarching goals that you need to focus on. And the first item is, what is the overall goal for your site? Stephen Edwards is about to get into this a little bit more in depth as we go to the next slide. But what this really means is, am I trying to sell something? Am I trying to give information? Am I trying to be educational? Am I trying to provide documentation to people about my product? Are they coming to my site to be updated on news or events or seminars or webinars, for example? What kind of information are they looking for, and what kind of information am I trying to provide? And that is your overall main overarching goal. And what do the users, what do I need the users to do when they arrive on my website? Are we trying to sell them something? So again, e-commerce, education, watch videos, reach out to me, that kind of thing. And is your site going to be mobile friendly? I hope that this is just a resounding yes, and then no one is saying to themselves, no, I don't really need it to be responsive. It has to be mobile friendly in this day and age. And Stephen can speak a little bit more to this from an SEO perspective, but Google does take that into consideration as they're ranking your site. So if your site is not responsive, if it is not accessible or legible on a mobile device, they rank it lower than they would a site that is responsive. And then who are your user personas? So this kind of goes back to that initial slide when we were defining the user's frustrations. Thinking about your personas and thinking about who is going to be using this site. It could be a multitude of different external users as well. So you could think about your investors, your vendors, prospects, repeat customers, employee candidates, as well as internal users, sales team, human resources, executives, engineers, etc. And one example that we have is that we just launched a very big website, Shore West Realtors. And the personas that we had to consider as we were developing out that site were numerous. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, someone's just coming to the site to buy a home. But it's not quite as simple as that. People are going there to find homes to buy. People are going there to find places to rent. People are going there to find buildings to buy for their company, so large real estate buildings and properties. And there's also new-time home buyers. There's people who are retiring. There's people who are downsizing or upsizing, or retired couples, etc. So it really varies, and you have to consider that you don't just want to show luxury homes on your website unless that's your main goal. You need to be able to address all of the users on your site. And one of the other big user personas that we had to consider on Shore West was that the agents use this site. almost as much as the users. So they need to be able to have the tools and resources and showcase their properties just as much as users coming to the site trying to look for a property. So user personas are extremely important to define before you even go into creating a new website.
Defining your big goals can also take a little bit more of a granular form. For example, if your website focuses on offering services such as performative services for your users, one of your goals may be to improve either a portal for your sales team or to provide a more streamlined and integrated RFQ process. Alternatively, if your site is more focused on providing education to its users, your big goals may include improving or implementing a documentation or PDF library, putting in a video gallery, or hosting and having a seminar or webinar portal. If the goal of your site is to provide e-commerce functionality, it will be especially important to determine what type of e-commerce platform works best for your business and your users. If your users are shopping directly on your site, you will likely need to have a secure login process and an up-to-date SSL certificate to ensure your users' payment and contact information remain private. If your users are going to be creating an account on your site, it will be extremely important to best determine what sort of user portal you will need on your site, how much customization you're going to want to allow to your users within that portal. And these are all things that the agency you choose to work with you can also help you determine, but knowing that you need them coming into the agency shopping process will allow you to address these right away rather than halfway through development of your new site. In addition to finding a good e-commerce platform, finding a compatible customer relationship management tool or a CRM tool to manage individual user, business, or team member accounts is non-negotiable. A tool like this should be able to leverage both security and manage user preferences, such as how they prefer to be contacted and their preferences for using your site and interacting with you as a business.
So the next slide is defining your growth potential. So when we talk about this, what we're thinking about is you developed your site in 2000, it's now 2017, your site is clearly not working for you right now, but what is your site going to be doing and what is your company going to be doing 5 years down the road? Now, you may not have an answer for that, but are you planning on expanding? You know, just general questions that you can think about. Are you thinking about entering into different markets? Is that one of your goals? And will this new website still work for you in 5 years? Now, what we typically recommend to our clients is that they do start thinking about a new website, even if they built one 4 years ago, after about 4 or 5 years, because technology gets outdated, the tech industry is constantly growing and changing, and it's a challenge that I love, but it's a little frustrating at times as well. So to think about, you know, now all of a sudden we have watches that show websites. So how is your site going to perform and grow as your business grows? And what can you do in advance to make sure that you can add that functionality and change things easily enough where you don't have to go through this entire process again necessarily, but you can just keep adding to it. The next point that we have is, do you plan on expanding into additional market channels? So that's what I just touched on as well. So if you're thinking that, you know, right now, really what we're focusing on is getting users to request quotes on some of our parts in our products because they're too big and everything we do is custom. Well, a little bit further down the road in a couple years, are you going to consider actually selling products on your site? So are you going to have that different kind of market where it may be more of a B2C kind of client rather than a B2B kind of client, where they can purchase one-off products from you. So just considering those market channels as well as the future potential for your website is extremely important as well.
And once you've defined your big goals and determined your growth potential, it will be important to think about what sort of conversion and goal points you have on your current site, and whether or not you need to add or remove any goal points on your new site. Goals or conversion points are areas of interactivity on your site that allow your users to interact or communicate with you and your brand in a way that will generate a potential lead or sale. Tracking these is likely going to be one of the backbones of how you're going to measure the success of your new site. While there are many ways for users to convert on a website, you should take the time to determine what the most efficient and relevant conversion points for your website are. Form submissions are an extremely common type of conversion point and come in many different flavors. Request for quotes, contact us forms, quick contact modules, user feedback surveys, and testimonial submissions are all useful in their own ways and can be used to garner different types of leads or feedback from your users. If you're an e-commerce site, tracking revenue will likely be one of your most valuable conversion metrics, especially on a product-by-product level. A secondary and often underappreciated conversion point for e-commerce sites are also product reviews. While they can be a bit of a wild card in the sense that users can write whatever they want to in the product review, they are looked favorably upon by Google and other search engines and can provide useful product information to display on search result pages. If your users are logging into your site, tracking new account creations as a goal will be a valuable and easy way to track engagement over time. There is also the opportunity to include points of interactivity within a user's account, such as email and notification customization and personalization. Users may also be able to modify what types of content they see on your site. Additionally, you may be able to use their preference and behavior history on your site to set up targeted remarketing to your user base through other marketing channels. Finally, there are other types of ways for your users to engage on your site that, while they're valuable, may not lead them to converting or generating a lead. We like to call these points events, and they should be tracked, albeit separately from your goals. These points on your site may include video plays or document downloads and newsletter and email signups that are not likely to make a user convert. Additionally, if you have a live or video chat service implemented on your site via a third-party tool, it will be worthwhile to integrate it into Google or Adobe Analytics to track engagement there as well.
So one additional point on here is that we could think about as being a non-converting user engagement would be a dealer or rep or sales or store locator where your users may not be converting on the site, but they may be trying to find your store. So just think about, are people able to find me and my product wherever they are? So those are our additional conversion points, technically. However, you're not actually going to see that result necessarily coming through as a lead generation through any form on your site.
So now that we have both the large and small goals for our new site defined, it's crucial to at least have an idea of the different types of tools you will need to make your new site run efficiently. It is important to note that this process is not a one-size-fits-all approach, and it will be unique to each company and their goals. While you may already know which third-party tools and services you need to have integrated into your new site, the agency you choose to work with on this project can help you find tools as long as you are able to define the functions of your site that need them. Measuring the success and performance of your new site is just as important as the functionality of the site itself. While many websites and businesses are already equipped with metrics tracking tools, I cannot stress enough how non-negotiable this is. Seriously, folks, this is an important item. Please track the performance of your site. Google offers a suite of web tools that will measure the performance of your site, and these can be easily used for reporting. This will require you to create a Google account for your business if you have not already, and this can be used as a single login for Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, and Google Search Console. Like I mentioned previously, analytics can be used to set your metrics baseline and measure performance moving forward. This is done by adding a tracking code to the coding on your site. I'm not going to dive down the rabbit hole on this topic because, again, setting up analytics on your site could be an entirely different webinar. But this is an easy task that can be accomplished by your in-house or agency developer. The analytics tracking code can then be used to sync your site with Tag Manager and Search Console. These two services offer additional and more comprehensive tracking functions and technical configurations for your site and allow you to further refine how it's crawled by Google.
So one additional thing is that we're talking about Google tools here, and this could be, as he said, a whole other webinar as well, but making sure that you have some sort of tracking on there that's really tracking events on the pages as well, and just seeing where people are spending most of their time, seeing where people are leaving your site from is very important for you to be able to optimize those pages moving forward, and seeing what's working for you and what's not and how to change it to your advantage. So adding these tools, and then also there's some user experience tools that you can add too, which would help you identify, what buttons people are clicking on the most on a page, how much time they're spending on a certain section of your page, heat mapping, which I won't even go into, but it really allows you to identify what people are looking at, where they're looking on the page, and what they're most interested in. So the next item that we're talking about is general website and content editing tools. So at a previous agency that I worked at before I came to Top Floor, what we were doing is building out websites where the majority of the content was just placed into a WYSIWYG editor. What we mean by WYSIWYG is what you see is what you get. It's very similar to how your email or Outlook looks on your computer. You're able to bold items, add bullet points to items, add images, add tables, etc. within just this one content block. However, is that ideal for you? Probably not, because it's very easy to break things if you're putting a lot of code within just that one content item. So the way that we develop out our sites and the way that every developer should be developing out their sites is to create separate fields for each one of those items. A clearly defined field that will say this is where the header image goes. This is where you need to place your logo. This is where you need to edit the content for your phone number. This is how the table should be set up, so that it's not too easy for someone who is helping you out, adding new content to your site, to break those pages. The next item is page creation. How easy is it for you to add a page to your site, edit a page on your site, hide a page from your site, not necessarily delete, but just hide for now, or even add that page to a menu. So you've created this page, you have no way of adding it to the navigation. So what are you going to do? You're probably going to place a link on another page, and then again that leads back to site and navigation structure issues. Ability to edit forms on your site. Do you need additional forms? Are you finding that people aren't filling out the phone number, but you really need that phone number to be filled out, so you need to make it a required field? Do you want to ask them more information? Do you want to ask them less information? What we typically suggest to our clients is that as they're thinking about what forms they want to add to the site and what fields they want to add to those forms, less is more. So if you're asking a user to fill out a quick contact form and you're requiring them to put in their email address, their phone number, their street address, their state, their zip code. That's a little too much information. Just try to get from them exactly what you need to reach back out and get in contact. And then you can get that additional information a little bit later. And is it easy for you to edit or add conversion points? So one example of that is the content in your sidebar. What we found and what the SEO team has let people on the user experience and development side know is that quick contact forms are extremely useful on a page. People are more likely to fill out a form that is on the page that they are reading, that they are interested in, than they are to go to the actual Contact Us page. So thinking about those conversion points on the page or leading a user to related content within the site is something that you should be able to edit on your own. And that's kind of the principle and philosophy that we develop our sites in, is that, is this CTA working for you? No, great, let's change it. Let's lead them somewhere else.
If your site has a heavy focus on content, it's going to be really important to consider how users are going to be able to access the content on your site. While some sites allow users to download PDFs or other documents freely, other sites may gate it behind a login, requiring users to create an account. If this is the case, again, it's important to consider whether or not you'll need a CRM for your website. Alternatively, you may wish to deliver content by email, requiring you to have a conversion point on your site, allowing your users to sign up for this content to be delivered to their inbox. Social media can also be integrated into your site in a variety of ways. You may simply want to link to your social presences in the footer of your site, or you may want to include social sharing plugins on product or blog pages. There's a lot of different customization that you can go into with social media integration on your site. This is another rabbit hole that I am going to dance carefully around and not dive down, but your agency will be able to help you determine the best ways to integrate your social media channels onto your site, as long as you have a clearly defined idea of what you want to accomplish with social media. If you plan on creating recurring content on your site in the form of blogs, news articles, or white papers, it's going to be especially important not only to define unique segments and personas to target your content towards, but also whether or not you are going to be able to dedicate the manpower towards creating this content. Creating a mock content schedule and defining the scope of your content will help you get an idea of the time and resources you will need to dedicate towards the creation of it. While I'm not going to dive too deeply into this, it's important to consider and maybe a service you look for in an agency partner so that they can help you leverage your content creation needs. Recurring content done well is worth the effort, and fresh content is looked very favorably upon by web crawlers such as Google. You will also appear more knowledgeable to your users and really let your industry expertise shine. This is definitely something that we recommend to a lot of the sites coming to, or a lot of the businesses coming to us, but it doesn't necessarily make sense for all of the businesses to do this work in-house. So if recurring content is something on your radar, definitely look for an agency that can help you in strategy creation or content creation and implementation, depending on what your own needs and limitations are.
Auxiliary tools. So as you're thinking about this new site, it is very important to think about the functionality and the structure and the content that you need to include. But a lot of times things that are overlooked are gallery functionality, image and video. So what we're talking about there is actually the image that you can see on the right-hand side. This is an example of a video gallery where there is a very large image up at the top. This could be your company's main corporate video that you're featuring. And then down below that are additional videos. They could be how-to videos. They could be client testimonial videos that you're getting. What we're seeing in the industry now is that there is a huge trend going towards people looking at videos and watching videos on the web. So this is a very important thing for you to think about this year as well as in the years to come. Are you really cultivating the type of content that people are using nowadays? As Stephen mentioned, social media plugins. Another point to make is that I've often heard clients ask me, well, we have a Twitter account, can we put that on our website? The one thing about Twitter is that anyone can say anything. So you have to be very careful about posting your Twitter feed on your website. If there is that possibility or eventuality that you may not be able to control that content, and you really do need a little bit more control over it. An alternate to Twitter would then therefore be Facebook or LinkedIn or Google+, etc. And map integration. So what we're talking about here is Google Maps. Are people able to easily find your location? So imagine that somebody is driving on the road, they go to your website on their phone, they see the address, but what are they going to do with that? They're in their car. Do you have the easy ability for that user to click on the map and open it up within their Google Maps on their phone and have it dictate to them exactly where they need to turn, what streets they need to go to, etc. Industry-specific tools, so calculators or interactive tools. What we mean here is a part finder, for example. Is it as robust as you need it to be? So if you have users coming to your site who have one of your very large machines but they need a replacement part, are they easily able to find that part on your website? Or are they easily able to calculate, exactly what part they need? Sales and dealer locator, which is something that we discussed a little bit previously. This again integrates with Google Maps or any other type of map plugin or system that you're using. And it'll allow users to easily find the location that's closest to them or closest to the site that they're currently working on. E-commerce or structured login portal. Are users able to easily navigate through the user portal on your website? Are they finding all the information that they need? Can they update their address or phone number or billing information? And then careers and distributor recruiting. This is an extremely important one, and it's oftentimes overlooked. Are you trying to hire the best people in your industry, and are they able to easily reach out and contact you and know if there are jobs available within your company? It's very important for you to show that you are very personable. You're not just a stiff business, but you have a lot of fun, and you're very involved in your community, and you have employee news or employee events that you're going to be featuring.
Your new website isn't going to exist in a vacuum. It's going to be important to make sure that it is not only aligned with your business goals, but also with your other marketing channels and initiatives. Having a clear vision of how your website will become an integrative part of your business will help you and your agency maximize its returns. When considering an agency, it's important to consider the services that they offer post the launch of your website. Many agencies offer organic and paid search programs that will work with you to continuously improve and expand the targeting and reach of your website. Programs like these will also increase the longevity of your site and help you stay on top of the changing web trends in the years moving forward. You may also want to expand or strengthen your social media presence. While there are many different social channels you could engage in for both B2B and B2C businesses, it's often beneficial to pick one or two to really focus on. This is an area where less is definitely more, and you do not want to risk overextending yourself on social media. Being unengaged with your users due to stretching yourself thin may be a sign to narrow down your social presences to build up a strong and engaged audience on just one or two channels. Email marketing is another channel that you can also look for in an agency. It may also be something that you already do, but making sure that your email marketing is integrated into the design of your new site and has consistent branding and messaging is going to be an absolute necessity.
So additional media assets that you can consider are photography, videography, content creation, and print media. So these are very important to your website. When users come to your site, is it easy for them to grasp exactly what you do? And this is very easily solved by having proper photography on your site, having proper images that really describe what a page is about. On your home page, having that giant banner up at the top, which I know is a point of contention for a lot of people internally, but it does make an impact, and it does influence the user to continue on through your site. And utilizing that space and that prime real estate at the top of your home page to really lead the user further down and find the products that you want to feature are important as well. Videography is the next one. And videography, what we were talking about before, that is a huge trend in the market right now. So making sure that you are creating those videos that may be important to your users, maybe useful resources, and putting those videos up on YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google. It is a Google product. So the more often you use Google products, the more they like you, and the higher they're going to rank you on their website as users are searching for some of the keywords that you're targeting. Content creation, making sure that you're staying up to date with the most recent content, or with the most fresh content, I should say, and updating your blog, updating your news, updating your case studies or your user testimonials or client testimonials, and just keeping constantly refreshing that content on your website. And then print media. This is also a very important one. I realize that everybody is saying print is dead. But my previous life, I had 2 degrees doing print media and doing branding. And it is still very much alive. So despite the fact that everything is still going digital, if you think about, going to a store and what catches your eye and making sure that all of those different mediums are working together and that your brand is properly delivered across all mediums is important for your digital performance as well. So other assets, as I was just touching on, one would be branding, making sure that you are staying consistent with your branding across everything. And that includes your website, your social media outlets, your print designs, your business cards, your email marketing, making sure that the logo is consistently the same across everything. You're delivering the same type of typography, styles across all of those different mediums. Will help you in your actual field and in your actual markets that you're trying to target. Allow users to identify with you and easily identify you. Project management. So project management is an extremely important part. The project managers here, as well as other places, are the liaison between the clients and the internal team members. It's not just that the internal team members don't have time to talk to you, it's also that project managers are able to put it in a way that people can understand, the typical layman can understand. So sometimes we are in our own little world and we have to stop and think, does my client actually understand what I'm talking about right now? I know that Stephen Edwards and I were sitting in a meeting just the other day and we were talking about 301 redirects. And we had to just kind of pause and explain what that meant to our client. So it is a very important part. I realize that it feels like, do I really need this additional person in the room? Yes, you absolutely do. And then the next one is hosting. This is something that people just think, well, I can go to GoDaddy, I host my domain there, so why not host using their servers? And one of the biggest issues that you can come across with hosting is that if you are on a shared hosting server, what that means is that you are sharing that server with multiple other websites, and you won't know what those other websites are. If those websites are out of date, if they get hacked, it is extremely likely that your site will get hacked as well. So that's just something to consider as you're considering your hosting. Even though there are increased prices on certain hosting services and companies out there, there's a reason for those increase in prices. It allows us, for example, we do hosting as well, it allows us to maintain your website, let you know if things are out of date, let you know if we need to update things on your site to make sure that your site is secure and is not going to get hacked. So there's a lot of maintenance that goes into a proper hosting company. And strategy, thinking about where you're going to go from here. So building a website is oftentimes not good enough. You have to think about how you are marketing that website across all the different channels available to you on the web. How are you're marketing yourself? If a user purchases an item on your site, are you sending them a follow-up email saying, thank you for purchasing this? You may also be interested in these items. So continuously trying to get those users to come back to you and be repeat customers are other assets that you should be considering. Part 5, putting the pieces together. Organizing these goals. So now you've gone through all of this legwork and you've come up with all these different lists. And how are you supposed to compile all of that and go to agencies and say, this is what we're really looking for. Can you help us? Give us a quote. So we created a list for your wants, your frustrations internally. We created a list for your users' wants and frustrations. We created a list of all the tools that you need to create or have on your website. And we created a list for aligning your marketing strategy with your website. So now putting all of that together and actually defining exactly what you're going to need and what your wish list items are is you know, the challenging part, but the part that actually makes all of this worth it. And you should not just do it once, but you need to do it twice. So go through that list again. Review that list with your internal team members. Make sure that everybody is on the same page. So something that we often find with some of our clients is that not everybody was included in the initial phases, and then somebody comes in later in the game when we're already halfway through development or even in the 11th hour, and we have to start thinking about, oh gosh, now how are we going to change this right now? So just make sure that everybody is aligning the goals and everyone's on the same page.
Defining your own scope and budget should also be done before contacting an agency to work with you. Having a clear vision in mind for your financial and time limitations will allow your agency partner to create and scope a project that will meet your deadlines and reduce hiccups along the way. It's also worthwhile to consider whether your total web project can be done in one phase or if it should be rolled out in multiple phases based on priority, budget, and time. Knowing your timeline and budget beforehand will help you and your agency build a strategy that works for you and delivers on what you want when you need it. If you take one thing away from this webinar, and I should have consulted with Sabrina about this, this was my big takeaway. She might have another one. I want it to be this. Take the time to shop around for an agency that is right for you, right for your business, and will help you reach your goals. Your agency partner should be a one-stop shop that does not result in you making undue compromises to your vision. Identifying an agency that can produce a website that delivers the results you are looking for based on your goals and expectations that you've defined is absolutely crucial and will make this an easy and fun process rather than a stressful and laborious process.
Yeah, and just to add to that, another thing that you should consider is, why am I spending so much money on an agency? What am I really getting from them? I think that everybody has a cousin, a neighbor, a cousin's son who could develop out really quickly, easily, and cheaply a website for them. But is that really featuring you in the best light on the web? Are people really going to be able to find you? Are they really going to be able to have the information that they need? Will that one person be able to add all of the tools to your site and have all of the expertise that they need to actually build out a robust and performing website that you need? So what you're really getting with a larger agency is not just one mind, but multiple minds all working together. So if I don't know something, I can go to Stephen Edwards and say, can you help me out with this issue that I'm coming across with regards to this content? Should we change this? Should we move this piece of content up further? So that's really what you're getting with an actual agency or company. And one of the most common responses that I get from people, and this is just touching on that first initial slide, is, why should I create a new website? Nobody ever comes to my site. It's really not a sales tool for me. I know I need to be online, but it's really not important to me. What you're missing, the biggest piece that you're missing there, if you're saying that to yourself, is that people are coming to your website, people are finding you, but they're not reaching out for some reason. So discovering what that reason is probably, for me, the most important takeaway that you could get from this webinar. Just seeing how you can actually turn this website into a sales tool for you. Because what that means is that this is not just one salesperson who needs to travel different places, who works 9 to 5, 5 days a week, and is done. This website is going to work for you 24/7. So just see it as an extension of your sales team, and even more far-reaching than you could imagine.
Okay, and that concludes today's presentation. I don't think we got any questions in during the actual webinar, so if anyone has any right now, we have a couple minutes left, so please submit them within the control panel. And if we don't get to your question, we can always connect at a later time if you had anything that you really wanted to ask the presenters. So I'll give you guys another minute or so. Okay, well, oh, hold on. Looks like one just came through. What is your process? What do you provide as a plan if a customer comes to you with a plan?
So that is actually our second webinar.
Yeah.
So as Stephen Edwards and I were going through this process, our initial topic just seemed way too broad. We really wanted to divide it out and give you the steps that you needed to define what you need within, oh yeah, wireframes and mockups, yeah, exactly. So that is the second webinar that we will be touching on. All of that, we're going to touch on sitemaps, keyword research. We're going to talk about the navigation and how to plan that out, wireframes, designs, functionality, specification, documents that we hand off to our developers, our QA process or our quality assurance testing, etc. So that'll be next.
To touch on, should you look at competitors' sites or not, looking at competitors' sites is absolutely an important part of the website creation process. Again, this is something that we'll touch more on in the second part of this webinar series. If that's something that you wanted to do before coming to an agency, working at an agency, we would appreciate that. It makes our work a little easier for you to come in and know who your competitors are, both actual competitors and competitors on the search results page, which can be a little different. But again, we'll be touching on that in our follow-up webinar.
Yeah, and it's something that we actually ask that question. We send out a questionnaire to our clients, and that is one of the questions on that questionnaire. But another thing to think about is that a lot of times what your competitors are doing is not necessarily the right thing. So take what they're doing with a grain of salt. Look at what they're doing, see what they're doing right, but also see how you can improve upon it. So also looking at other websites that just stand out to you. They're really doing something right. So Target, for example, their e-commerce system is amazing. Their cart functionality is really great. And you want to try to emulate that. However, you're not Target. That is not one of your competitors. But still looking at those sites is extremely helpful as you're going through this process and figuring out what kind of functionality and design, etc. that you want.
Okay, we had a couple more questions come through, but unfortunately we are a little bit over our time limit. So what we'll do is if you did submit a question and it wasn't answered, we will reach out to you separately after the webinar and you know, get in touch as soon as we can. And I just wanted to let you know also that I will be following up with an email including a download to the presentation. So if you know someone that wasn't able to attend, or you know, if you want to revisit some of the slides yourself, we will provide that to you. And I just want to thank everyone for attending, and also Sabrina and Stephen for putting on a great presentation, and we hope that you all have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.